This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
And welcome in, folks, to another edition of Open Mic Night. I'm your host, Noah Tluki, and on today's episode, a lot of Lions free agent moves to discuss. Guys that are signing with other teams, guys that are re-signing with the Lions. We'll get more into that as we go. And also, the first round of March Madness set to begin this weekend. We will predict over here on the Open Mic Night podcast who the winners of each first round game will be. I want to play this little game. I don't want to predict the whole bracket yet. Just the first round games for right now, and then we'll go from there for the preview, the next couple weeks. But hopefully everybody had a great weekend out there. I know it was really, really cold and windy over here in Cleveland. I don't know what it was like in Detroit, but definitely I really wish that the weather would just warm up right now. I'd love to go outside and play some golf and do that and everything, but just right now it's just too windy, too cold. The ground is too damp right now, and I just really want it to dry out so we can start going out. And our football team, John Carroll, we actually came out with a victory in our first game of the season. First time we've ever been playing spring ball before over our rival Baldwin Wallace. So that was a lot of fun to call. It was a nice crowd, nice to see a lot of parents and old friends out there and alumni. So it was good, and I definitely had a great weekend working a lot of events and calling football. So it was exciting, and our team's going to actually be back in action against Mount Union. Maybe some people out there might know what Mount Union is, but they're one of the perennial powers in Division III every year. They've had guys like Pierre Garcon and Cecil Shorts. Dom Capers, Lions senior defensive assistant, he's a Mount Union grad, so there's a lot of football tradition at Mount Union. But like I've mentioned before, a lot of football tradition with John Carroll, and it's always a big game. I know ESPN always, I know College Game Day, they'll always do something about the Mount Union John Carroll game, and it always makes ESPN in some way, shape, or form because it's one of the bigger games in Division III every year. So it's exciting, and I'm really looking forward to calling it on Saturday, but I wanted to get into a little Lions talk right now. A couple of surprising moves from this free agency. Jamal Agnew, he's no longer with the Lions. He signed a 3-year deal with the Jacksonville Jaguars. New coach Urban Meyer, possible new quarterback in Trevor Lawrence. So I was a little surprised by this, not going to lie. I thought Agnew would be a mainstay at returner for the next couple years or so, but I just he had a nice run in Detroit. I'm happy for him. He's off to Jacksonville, but returners, you don't see returners stick around too often with teams. They kind of tend to bounce around. So am I surprised a little bit? But I guess when you think about it in the long run, not very. Jared Davis signing a contract with the Jets. Christian Jones, Justin Coleman, Desmond Trufant, Chase Daniel, Danny Shelton, Jesse James, Nick Williams, and Joe Dahl all being released by the Lions. I mean, and then we talked about Romeo Akara signing a 3-year, $39 million deal with the Lions. Also re-signed was Jalen Reeves-Maybin and Mike Ford. This is currently Tuesday, so this is developing. There could be more, whenever you listen to this next, but interesting about Jamal Agnew, but I think it's very obvious. Jared Davis leaving, Jones, Coleman, all these guys, these are all guys that were pretty much brought in during the Bob Quinn era, in the Matt Patricia era. And I think it's just very, very obvious that the team is just ready to move on from these guys. I know there was some guys, Justin Coleman was costing the Lions a lot of money. There was Desmond Trufant as well, and I actually literally just now got a text from my friend, a little NFL insider, if you will. No, I'm just kidding about that. But he says Marvin Jones to Jacksonville per source. So it looks like Marvin Jones is off of Detroit now, and he's heading to sunny Jacksonville, Florida. It looks like he'll be a weapon for Trevor Lawrence or whoever they draft, assumingly it's Trevor Lawrence. So it looks like the top 2 receivers for the Lions are going to be gone. I mean, Kenny Golladay is out because the Lions did not want to franchise tag him, so he's a free agent. Marvin Jones is out. I mean, currently the best receiver on the roster right now, I guess, is either Quintez Cephas or newly signed Tyrell Williams. I mean, oh my gosh. The Lions are definitely in need of a wide receiver, and this is just a developing story, but literally just got this text as I was recording. So a little surprise there. I didn't think it would come out right now. But definitely more and more guys just being shipped off to different places. Chase Daniel, I mean, we all knew that, he was basically Stafford's friend that he's had for a long time. And I'm not really, that surprised at this, because it was very evident that Chase Daniel lacks arm strength. And we saw it in those games that he relieved Stafford. And it just, he's not... there's just better options out there at backup quarterback for Jared Goff than Chase Daniel. So I'm fine with him. I'm fine with him being gone. Danny Shelton was definitely a Patricia product. I mean, this is a guy from New England, former first-round pick. He kind of fizzled out. Not the production that everybody thought he would have. Plus, he struggled with some injuries as well. Jesse James, I mean, you could say that, he had production with the Steelers, but it just did not work out with the Lions. He barely caught any passes. I mean, the Lions gave him so much money. I mean, so much money just to block, basically, and not catch many passes. So I'm fine with Jesse being gone. Nick Williams was one of those Patricia products. And then Joe Dahl, who he's been with the team for a good 5-6 years now. So he's gone. That's a little interesting as well, because he seemed to be, one of the steady rocks, I guess, on the offensive line when called upon. He'd start here and there. I didn't think he was terrible. I didn't think he was, very, very good, but I didn't think he was that bad. But still, a veteran offensive lineman being released by the Lions. So very obvious that the new regime in Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell, they really want to establish themselves with their own guys. So, I mean, that's 2, 4, 6, 8. I mean, that's 9 guys right there. If you count Marvin Jones, 10. I mean, just right off the bat. So definitely interesting there from that perspective. But Romeo Akara, 3 years, $39 million, and he really wants Detroit to be part of his home. I was a little surprised by the money. I didn't think he'd be $39 million, but the Lions must see something in him. They must see him as a cornerstone defensive end piece. And look, Romeo had a great season, 10 sacks, and I'm really happy for him in that regard. And he did a lot of great things granted, the defense was historically bad, but, for how bad the defense was, still racking up 10 sacks and having a productive year is pretty good. So I don't mind Romeo coming back. I just was a little surprised at the money. I was like, wow, almost $40 million? Yikes. I'm not expecting that. Jalen Reeves-Maybin and Mike Ford also being re-signed. Look, I don't mind. Jalen Reeves-Maybin, he's been a special teams ace pretty much his entire time with the Lions. And I've always believed in special teams as well. You have to have a solid special teams, especially in the NFL. So I don't mind that. Mike Ford, same sort of deal, backup cornerback. I don't think his coverage is the best, but I think more of a special teams role. That's fine. So developing stories, we'll keep you covered. Look at SI.com and all that the stuff that John Macaroon does, and our friend Matt Derry with the Locked On Lions podcast, among some others. So keep up for some updates with that. Because NFL free agency is a blast. The whole carousel, and it's fun to keep track of sometimes. And I'm always curious to see who the Lions are going to get, because free agency will, I think, shape how the Lions are going to draft. We'll get to draft stuff later. I mentioned in a couple episodes ago how they should probably draft Kyle Pitts. And, especially with the news breaking that Marvin Jones is gone, I think that could be maybe more in reality. But we'll have to monitor the situation, and we'll have to see. All right, it is time for the March Madness. We're going to predict the first-round games for March Madness this year. Of course, we did not get a tournament last year. It was canceled. I was really, really bummed about that, because I get really into March Madness every year. It's been tough. It's been tough the last couple days to really fill out a bracket. I need some time. A lot of times I got to really focus and make sure my picks are very good. But I guess this is just a brief prediction right now. Later on in the week is when the predictions will get a little more serious, but I guess this is just right off the bat. I wish we had some music like the dun 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 dun, like from CBS and all that. The stuff that just reeks March Madness. But we're going to start off with the West Division. It's going to be Gonzaga versus the winner of Norfolk State or Appalachian State. And I think this is a no-brainer. Gonzaga's 26-0, 4-0 against top 25 teams. They're very, very deep. I'm going with Gonzaga first game. These 8 versus 9 seeds get tricky. This is Oklahoma and Missouri. Oklahoma kind of struggling. So same with Missouri. Missouri doesn't shoot that well from three. So I don't know. I'm more favoring Oklahoma in this one, despite the 0-4 finish to their season. So Creighton and UC Santa Barbara, 5 versus 12. Creighton, I mean, getting a blowout loss to Georgetown in the Big East Championship. Not really expecting that much. UC Santa Barbara, a great free throw shooting team when it matters the most. They have a Conference Player of the Year in Ja'Cory McLaughlin, but I don't know. I just see Creighton pulling this ahead and pulling away with a lot of upperclassmen and a lot of balance to offensive attack. So I'm going Creighton in that one. Virginia, Ohio. This was one where I looked at and I thought, man, this could be interesting. Virginia not really playing well. I mean, they lost by 23 to Gonzaga, 21 to Florida State. I mean, you know, they had their semifinal game canceled and all that in the ACC tournament. Ohio, they have a guy, Jason Preston, kind of a do-it-all sort of point guard for them. You know, in the tournament, the key is you got to have one guy, like a great coach and one guy that can really, really take over. And Ohio might have that, but I don't know. I think Virginia has the experience and the depth. I'm going to go with Virginia, but I bet it's a close game in that one. That's for sure. USC versus Wichita State or Drake. I mean, I think Drake will end up winning that play-in game against Wichita State, but, I mean, USC, a lot of veterans. They're shooting over 70% from the free throw line. One of the top rebounding and shot blocking teams in the country. I don't know why the perennial power from the Pac-12 can't win that one. So I'm going with USC, the 6th seed. 3 seed Kansas versus 14 Eastern Washington. It's been sort of a little bit of an up and down year for Kansas. I know they're 20-8, but they've had some bad losses on the way. But this is another interesting one. The Kansas got their withdrawal from the Big Ten tournament. The Big 12 tournament, but they have a deep core of scorers, and they got a clamp-down defense, especially in the second half. Eastern Washington, they're offensive-minded, shoot the free throw really well, and they're hot, winning 14 of the last 15. Another tough one. It could be, because part of filling out brackets is you got to have some upsets, and you got to think, okay, what are the ones that could really upset? What are the ones that can really turn the tide with the bracket? Especially if you submit on ESPN like I usually do. But I think Kansas wins this one. Could be close, though, especially with some decent offensive scorers from Eastern Washington. But that second half does it for me. Oregon, VCU, another interesting one, 7 versus 10. Oregon, very, very veteran-heavy, but VCU really known for its defense. Oregon, you know, they played well last year with Peyton Pritchard. He's gone, but I think they have a good enough team to win this one in the first round. So I'm going to go with Oregon, the 7th seed. And then Iowa, Grand Canyon. I mean, what can you say? I got 2 words for you. Luka Garza, probably the Big Ten Player of the Year. Iowa riding that 2 seed at 21-8. 8 wins against top 25 teams. And this is Grand Canyon's first tournament appearance ever in school history. They actually upset the WAC mainstays, New Mexico State. They're always in the tournament, but this year Grand Canyon upset them. So good for them, but I just think Iowa will be too much for them. No 15s upsetting 2s. We head to the East now. Michigan against a play-in game with Texas Southern in Mount St. Mary's. I don't think Michigan will make the Final Four. That's for a different podcast. But, I mean, number 1 seeds 139-1 all time against 16 seeds. I mean, I don't think there's any chance Michigan loses this one. We go to 8 versus 9, always interesting. LSU and St Bonaventure. The Bonnies can always be sneaky in the tournament. They're definitely balanced on both sides of the ball. They can score and beat opponents in all kinds of different ways. Very efficient as well. But LSU, I mean, newcomer of the year, Cameron Thomas, 22.8 points a game. First team all SEC. Some other guys that can really score. But, I mean, their defense, the interior defense, not very, very good. Very exploitable. I'm going to go with an upset here. The 9 seed, St. Bonaventure, the Bonnies, will upset LSU and move on and play probably Michigan. Colorado, Georgetown. Another interesting matchup, 5 versus 12. Georgetown with a big, big upset over Creighton in the Big East Championship. But Colorado, I mean, they're a great free throw shooting team, always important in the tournament. They got upset by Oregon State in the Pac-12 title game, but they definitely have a very efficient offense. I got to say, Georgetown, this is going to be my first 12 upsetting a 5. I think they're hot right now, especially after beating a very good Creighton team. I think Georgetown upsets Colorado in the first round, and good for Patrick Ewing and his alma mater, doing a great job as the head coach there for the Hoyas. Florida State versus UNC Greensboro. I've always liked Florida State. I know they lost to Georgia Tech in the ACC championship, but they're definitely still one of the best offenses in the country. And you look at UNC Greensboro finishing on that 15-3 run, winning the Southern Conference tournament, and they definitely are great with blocks and steals, one of the best in the nation with that. Only one player averaging double digits, but that helps when it's Isaiah Miller, the 2-time Southern Conference Player of the Year and Defensive Player of the Year. And he's, a guy, like I said before, one guy can really carry a team in the tournament, and this is a guy that could definitely do that for them. But I think Florida State and their fast-paced offense is way too much for UNC Greensboro, so I'm going with the 4 seed, Florida State. BYU versus the winner of Michigan State and UCLA. How about that? We'll have to see. At the time of this recording, Michigan State and UCLA have not played. Personally, right now, I think Michigan State beats UCLA. I think they got to at least win one game. At least one. But, I don't know, 6 seed BYU, they can always be sneaky. And, they got snubbed last year. They went 24-8, and obviously, tournament. But three of their losses were against Gonzaga. If this is a 20-3 team if you remove them. Very deep team as well. They're always a great shooting team. One of their guys, Alex Barcelo, shooting 48.6% from beyond the arc. And I don't know. I think BYU is going to beat Michigan State. So probably the Cougars advancing in that one, just based on that shooting. And I know Michigan State has played well at times. But I think this shooting will be too much. Texas and Abilene Christian. So a little Texas, the state of Texas rivalry right here. Abilene Christian, consecutive tournament bids, and they're definitely one of the top defensive teams in the country, and they love forcing turnovers and limiting threes. They don't really have a standout player, but they have some guys that can make some noise here and there, and they have some defensive intensity. So a team to look out for in terms of an upset. But Texas, getting that 3 seed, Shaka Smart, very, very talented team right now. They're winning at the right time as they won the conference title for the first time in 26 years. They definitely have some sharpshooters as well, and some upperclassmen that could really lead. I'm going to go with Texas here, but this is going to be very, very close. I bet Abilene Christian has the lead a couple times in this one. UConn back in the NCAA tournament versus 10 seed Maryland. Lost 3 times to Creighton, Connecticut did. They beat USC by 3, lost to Villanova by 8. A couple of their highlights there. Maryland losing 3 times to Michigan, beating Illinois by 3. That's a good win for them. But UConn struggling mid-season. They got their leading scorer James Bouknight back, but their strength is really the defense. But Maryland, they are doing very, very well from hitting the 3-pointers and their percentage of points, and they definitely have some quality wins to their resume. So I'm going to pick Big Ten, Maryland, the 10 seed, with an upset over the 7 seed UConn Huskies. Alabama, the 2 seed, playing Iona, the 15 seed. Iona, coached by Rick Pitino. He's back in coaching after coaching years at Louisville and Kentucky and all kinds of other Division I schools. Very, very good coach, but a lot of people know about the scandal that happened at Louisville. So he's got Iona in the tournament after they won the MAAC tournament. I have a couple of really good players. Isaiah Ross, 3 30-point efforts this season. They're very undersized, as most small schools are, but they definitely a team that can battle hard and definitely could give Bama some fits. But, I think Alabama's going to be too much for them. Herbert Jones, SEC Player of the Year. Nate Oates. Shout out to Nate Oates, by the way. He used to coach at Romulus High School in the Detroit area for, I think, 8 years, and then he was hired away by Providence. and then by Bobby Hurley, and then over to Buffalo, became the head coach at Buffalo, went to a couple tournaments. Now he's the head coach at Alabama, and he's just doing a phenomenal job. So he's not even from the state of Michigan. He's from the state of Wisconsin, but I don't know how he ended up in Michigan, but he was at Romulus for a long time, and he definitely made himself known as a very, very good high school coach over there. I actually got to meet him one time at a U of D Jesuit basketball game. So a great guy, and I'm really happy that he's building a great program there. So I'm taking Alabama, and Player of the Year, Herbert Jones, that's for sure. Well, we head to the South region, where Baylor, the 1 seed, will play Hartford, the 16 seed. I mean, Baylor, what else can you say? I mean, this is a very, very good defensive team. I mean, they've been the number 1 team in the country a couple times this year. They definitely can hit the 3 when needed. I mean, Hartford, you know, this is actually their first time they've ever made the NCAA tournament, and obviously very undersized, as most small schools are. Baylor wins in a landslide. They crush Hartford, that's for sure. 8 seed North Carolina and Wisconsin, 2 teams that are usually mainstays in the NCAA tournament, getting lower seeds than usual this year. This will probably be a battle. I could see, you know, the Tar Heels are hot. You know, they've won 4 of their last 6, and they beat Florida State and Virginia Tech. I mean, 2 tournament teams right there. And they have 3 forwards averaging just under 7 rebounds a game. So they have the ability to control the glass, and definitely one of the best rebounding teams in the country. But Wisconsin, very efficient assist-to-turnover ratio, and definitely a slower pace, much like Virginia's offense, where they're very slow on the attack, they don't use the full court, mostly just, different zones. But I definitely could see Wisconsin pulling this one off. I think they will. The 20th most experienced roster in Division I. I mean, Dimitri Trice, a very efficient player, Brad Davison as well. So I think Wisconsin, the 9 seed, beats UNC, the 8 seed. Villanova, the 5 seed this year, they're playing Winthrop. Interesting for Villanova because they lost their senior guard, Colin Gillespie, to a season-ending knee injury. He's been the heart and soul of that team for a long time now. But they still have 3 double-digit scorers, but his outside shooting and his playmaking, definitely tough to replace. But the Eagles of Winthrop coming in hot. They only have 1 loss. They're 23-1. And they're definitely a team to look out for. They regularly play with 11 guys, a lot of different skill sets and depth. Chandler Vaudrin, a guy to look out for, 6'7", 3 triple-doubles this season, and 6'9", 275. DJ Burns, who was a Tennessee recruit, he's another guy to look out for. Guess what? I am picking a 12-seed Winthrop over number 5, Villanova. I think that just Gillespie injury will just be too much, and Winthrop will prevail with only that 1 loss on the season. We move now to Purdue, the 4 seed, against North Texas, the 13 seed. Purdue from the very, very tough Big Ten Conference this season. Very, very talented. Travion Williams, remember that name. He is a very talented player for the Boilermakers. He actually went to high school at Henry Ford in Detroit, and one of the better bigs in the country for sure. But North Texas, coming off their Conference USA tournament title, first time that they have been to the big dance since 2010. Defense is a big strength for them. They are top 50 in the nation in adjusted efficiency and effective field goal percentage. I don't know, though. I just see Travion Williams having a big day against this defensive-minded North Texas team. I don't know if they can be able to keep up offensively. I go with Purdue in that one. Texas Tech, who went to the Final Four 2 years ago, beat Michigan State. They play Utah State, who can be a little sneaky at times. Chris Beard, of course, the very good head coach for the Red Raiders. They are definitely one of the best teams in the nation at forcing turnovers, and they have Mac McClung, who was the Georgetown transfer. But they play with a very fast-paced offense, and they definitely have one of the best blocking and rebounding teams definitely as well. But Utah State with Nehemias Quenta, he's a double-double machine, averaging 15 and 10, and one of the best rebounding teams in the country. I know Mac McClung's a great player, but I just see Utah State, after having a great 2020 campaign, they want revenge. They want to make sure that they're able to prove to the nation that they can win in the tournament. So I'm going with an upset, Utah State number 11 over 6, Texas Tech. Arkansas number 3 against Colgate, who got the 14th seed. They won 12 of their final 13 games before falling to LSU in the SEC semis. That was Arkansas, leading the SEC in scoring with 82 points a game as well. For Colgate, Patriot Player of the Year, Patriot League Player of the Year, Jordan Burns. He's definitely the guy that has really gotten them to where they are at. Only one loss on the year. I just see Arkansas. I just think it's too much. I think their offense and their size are too much for Colgate, so I'm picking Arkansas in that one. 7 Florida versus 10 Virginia Tech. They just have not been the same since they lost Keontae Johnson. I know that made big news when he had that health scare on the court. He collapsed. It was in a coma, I believe, for a couple days. They've had some win streaks, but they got 4 players scoring in double figures, but they just have not had that consistency since they lost Keontae Johnson. Virginia Tech, they have had 5 of their last 8 games canceled, and started the season 13-3. I'm picking another upset, just Florida not the same without Keontae Johnson. Virginia Tech wins that one over the Gators. And number 2 seed Ohio State versus number 15 seed Oral Roberts. I mean, Ohio State just playing very well. I know they lost to Michigan State, but they have a great outside tandem in E.J. Liddell and Dwayne Washington. They combine for about 30 points a night. Cal transfer Justice Suing showing flashes of dominance as well. Both good with the free throw percentages and the turnover rate, so I definitely think Ohio State could be a lock for this one. Summit League, Oral Roberts winning that championship. They have Max Abness, and he's one of the highest scorers in the nation, but I just don't think that they'll have enough to beat Ohio State, so Ohio State wins that one. And finally, we head to the Midwest region, the final region of the 2021 NCAA tournament. We start off with Illinois and Drexel. Illinois with the 1 seed, Drexel with the 16 seed. I mean, Illinois, really, it's Ayu Dosunmu. He's really the guy that really stirs the pot for this team. And Kofi Cockburn. I mean, they have a lot of players, very, very talented team this is, and they've made a lot of great strides. Brad Underwood and his staff should be very, very proud of themselves for the ability that they've done with this team this year. Drexel, it's been tough, a little 12-7 season, but they have a couple of all-conference players that are efficient and very efficient on offense as well, leading the Colonial Athletic Association field goal percentage and free throw percentage, but I just see Illinois just taking care of business there. In that one, no, that should be a blowout. This is one of the more interesting games in the tournament, I think. This is Loyola of Chicago, who got the number 8 seed, who's been ranked nationally for most of the year. Also, the university where my sister goes. Shout out to my sister, who is a freshman at Loyola. And number 9, Georgia Tech, who upset Florida State in the finals of the ACC tournament. So they won, Josh Pastner and his crew. Remember, 3 years ago, Loyola had that very memorable run to the Final Four led by Cameron Krutwig, and he is back for his senior year, 6'9", 255, leading his team in points, rebounds, assists, and blocks. But the Yellow Jackets coming in hot, like I mentioned, beating Florida State. ACC Player of the Year, Moses Wright, very strong on both sides of the ball and very aggressive as well. But I don't know. I think the run comes to an end for Georgia Tech. I think Loyola beats Georgia Tech in that one. Tennessee, the number 5 seed against Oregon State, the 12 seed. Surprising for Oregon State. They enter the tournament after upsetting Colorado to win their first Pac-12 championship ever. 6 of the last 7 they have won, playing their best basketball right now. They have a little issues with consistency, but definitely Ethan Thompson and Jared Lucas are the guys to really go for Oregon State. Tennessee, they have really kind of struggled. I mean, 18-8 record, but definitely 8-7 record to end the year. So they really kind of lack some offense, but they make up for it on defense. They're good at free throws and make up for it on defense. But I don't know. I see Oregon State upsetting Tennessee. So 12 seed Oregon State riding some momentum late season momentum against the Vols of Tennessee. They take care of business in that one. Oklahoma State, the 4 seed against 13 seed Liberty. Oklahoma State is really led by that Cade Cunningham. He is one of the top picks probably in the NBA draft back this year. And also, he gets a lot of double teams. So a lot of these guys like Khalid Boone, Avery Anderson, they're able to open things up when he gets double teamed. And they really clamp down low defensively in the paint. And they're really, really good in transition as well. But Liberty, 23-5 with that 13 seed. They've won 12 straight. They have a very good shooter in Darius McGee, who led the Atlantic Sun Conference with just over 3 3-pointers a game and 15.6 a game as well. Number 1 in their conference in 3-point field goal percentage and free throw percentage. I know Cade Cunningham's a great player, and a lot of times in the tournament you need that one guy to step up. I see Liberty winning it. I do. I see an upset 13 over number 4. I think that 3-point shooting really helps. It's going to be close down to the wire, but I think Liberty pulls it out in the end. Another interesting matchup, San Diego State, the 6 seed versus the 11 seed Syracuse. Syracuse, as we all know, can be very sneaky in the tournament. We saw them beat Michigan State with that zone defense a couple years ago, and they rode to the Sweet 16. So any year they're a threat to really go to that Sweet 16 Elite 8. Very efficient offense for the Orange. Shout out to Matt Derry, by the way, our friend of the podcast, who is a Syracuse alum. They love knocking down free throws, taking care of business, and taking care of the ball. Very good defensively as well as always. Buddy Boeheim, Jim Boeheim's son, and Alan Griffin are really their main players for them. But San Diego State, led by head coach Brian Dutcher. If anybody remembers from the Fab Five documentary, he was actually an assistant on Coach Steve Fisher's staff when the Fab Five were really big at Michigan. When Steve Fisher left Michigan, he went to San Diego State, became the coach there for almost 20 years, and then Dutcher took over. So this is his first opportunity as a head coach the last couple years. So he's doing a great job down there in San Diego. They have a great defense as well, and they got some players, Jordan Shackle and Matt Mitchell. They're real threats to score over 20 points. And I think it's going to be a very defensive game, but in the end, San Diego State has a little more offense than the Orange. San Diego State takes care of business. 3 seed West Virginia against the 14 seed Morehead State. Morehead State, for the first time in a decade, going to the big dance after beating Belmont in the OVC championship game. And it was actually their second win over the Belmont Bruins, who were the favorites to win in less than 10 days. So good for Morehead State. I remember Kenneth Fareed, and they were always a threat to win a tournament game back in the day when they were very, very good. But definitely a guy to look out for them. 4 upperclassmen in the starting lineup. Johnny Broom, he leads the team with 13.9 points a game and 9 rebounds. A guy to look out for sure. West Virginia, though, they love scoring in the paint. Very well balanced as well. Derek Culver, he's a real force on the glass, averaging a double-double. But they're 4-7 against ranked opponents, and they defend the 3 well, but their post defense has really, really burned them in those close losses. Could we see an upset? How about this? Just for the heck of it, I'm calling Morehead State over West Virginia, 14 over number 3. Anything can happen in this tournament this year, folks, and I see Morehead State taking care of business against the Mountaineers. 7 seed Clemson against 10 seed Rutgers. The Tigers of Clemson, one of the better defensive units in the country, and they also generate a lot of turnovers, which is important, especially in the tournament. They just don't shoot that well, though, but they move the ball well, and they produce a good volume of threes from beyond the arc. And there's only one guy averaging double digits on this team, so not a lot of offense, but they definitely get it done on the defensive side. Steve Pickell from Rutgers earning a 10 seed in this tournament from the Big Ten. I know it's definitely been a grind for him to build this program up, and he's done a great job over there at Rutgers. I mean, they beat Illinois, remember, in December, and that 1 seed. That's really what put them on the map this year. And they don't go down. They don't go down easily, though. This team, they're playing well defensively. They block shots, and there's also Jacob Young, who's been emerging as that offensive threat. I see Rutgers winning. I do. 10-seed Rutgers beating Clemson. I think they lock down defensively, and I think they take care of business. And then the final game is Houston, the 2-seed, against the 15-seed Cleveland State. I'll say this, Cleveland State, especially being in Cleveland, it's been kind of fun to watch them play. And it's interesting, too, because I remember a couple years ago, they were just really bad. One of the worst teams in the Horizon League. Now they get the Horizon League bid. And Dennis Gates, all the credit to him. He's done a great job over there for the Vikings. But Torrey Patton is really their guy, 14.9 points a game. Also the Horizon League Defensive Player of the Year in Trey Gormillion. But Houston, just a lot of expectations for them. A shot-creating guard in Quentin Grimes. And they're definitely one of the most elite teams in the country with a great, great defense and a great rebounding team. I see Houston just taking care of Cleveland State. The Horizon League has not really had a whole lot of luck in the tournament as well. So that'll about do it. A couple upsets here and there. A lot of the bigger schools, I see Michigan moving on really well and a couple others, but a couple upsets here and there. You got to have some upsets in the tournament to create a good bracket, that's for sure. So we'll keep an eye on that here on the Open Mic Night podcast for you in the next couple weeks, but that's my little, I guess, my first initial reaction of my bracket for this 2021 tournament. Okay, one last thing before we close. I did mention previously about the Lions that this is a developing story, so more and more free agents will be announced if they're signing different places. I just am getting word that Jamal Williams has signed with the Lions from Green Bay. That's an interesting signing because, of course, we mentioned in previous podcasts how the Lions' run game, they're always trying to establish the run, and DeAndre Swift seems to be the bell cow, but Jamal Williams could be a great number two, guy to really lean on, especially for the younger guys to really learn from as well, and he's provided a little burst in Green Bay. I think this is a great signing. He's definitely a dual purpose. He can catch as well. So props to the Lions for signing Jamal Williams, a 2-year, $7.5 million deal. Also, Michael Brockers comes over from the Rams. We all know about how good the Rams defense was this year. The Lions sent them a 7th-round pick. So the second trade that they've made with the Rams, the first one, of course, was for Jared Goff. Really surprising. I was very surprised by this. Matt Prater has signed with the Cardinals. I'm going to miss Matt Prater. He was, just his story of leaving Denver and finding a new home in Detroit, and I'm gonna miss him. He was really, really good at kicking those long field goals, and from a fan's perspective, he will be deeply missed. I was surprised though. I thought he was going to be a Lion for the rest of his career, but signing a 2-year deal with Arizona, another indoor stadium over there that he can kick in. So the Lions will have a kicking. It's just interesting too because kicking has never been something that the Lions really have needed to worry about much. I mean, you think about in the 80s when Eddie Murray was the kicker. Then pretty much after Eddie Murray retired, then Jason Hansen became the kicker. And you can go back and listen to Jim Arnold. We talk about the different kickers and how consistent the special teams have been. Jason Hansen was the kicker for 20 years. There was a little bit of a lull in between. There was David Akers and Nate Freese, and David Akers kicked that 1 year, but the Lions need to find a little more consistency. They found that with Matt Prater. So really, in reality, they've only had 3 kickers in the last 35 years or so for the most part. So they've been very consistent in the kicking game. Hopefully the Lions will find somebody that can replace Prater because his presence will be missed, that's for sure. So a couple of Lions updates as we record here on the podcast. But thanks again, folks, for tuning in. It's been a pleasure, and I hope maybe I shared with some of my knowledge with the brackets for you to maybe help you with your ESPN league, your CBS, or whatever. I usually fill one out on CBS, and I'll fill a couple out on ESPN with for my friends. We do a little bracket league every year, so that's a lot of fun. And I'm sure that's what makes it fun, making sure picking and upsets, and that's what the tournament is all about. Thanks again, folks, for tuning in, and make sure to join us next week only on Open Mic Night.